Thank you everybody for coming to class tonight. It's awesome. Thank you, Kayla, for being my partner. I feel like we complement each other well. Thank you guys for arguing the more difficult side of this debate, because it's incorrect. And thank you, Dr. Dar, for teaching us how to debate. To start, I would like to start by saying our resolution verbatim. And our resolution states that grade inflation is harmful to students. And before I get into my key points, I would like to define a few key terms. Harmful is just anything that is damaging, kind of self-explanatory. And grade inflation is the rise of the average grade assigned to students, particularly in colleges, namely the Ivy League schools. My first main point tonight is that giving everybody an A lessens the A that someone who works really hard lessens the A that somebody else got. A good example of this would be that Kayla and I have every single class together, okay? We both have an A+ in our cyber culture class, and I don't do anything in that class. And she is there on time every day, and she does all her homework, and I've only done like the bare minimum, and I still have an A+. So, my second point, yes.
Okay, so her A is harmful to you because you're also getting an A, so it's harmful to you because you're getting an A, and she's also getting an A?
No, my A is harmful to her because my A I didn't have to try for, and her A she has had to try for.
But like, what about minding your own business? Just gonna sit down.
Alright. My second point is that it's kind of hard to get out of this trap because professors who fight against the grade inflation and give students the grades that they actually deserve, where we go back to C being the average, they will be seen by their superiors as a lesser professor than their professor who gives everybody A's. My third point is that, okay, so you guys have seen the movie The Incredibles, right? And you know, like Syndicate, the bad guy with like the awesome hair, really up here, and he is like, if everyone is super, then no one will be. And if everybody gets an A, then you won't be able to tell who actually worked hard and got the A, you know? I have a fourth point in here. And my fourth point is that when I was taught the grading system, a C was average and a D was tolerable. And then I went to high school and a B was average and a C was tolerable. And now here in college, A is the average and a B is tolerable. This is not the way that it should be. So, and to recap my 4 points, wait, hang on. Before I do that, I would like to tell you guys a story about a Harvard professor, okay? This Harvard professor was recently criticized for the rampant grade inflation, and he was asked this in a press conference, and the guy that was bringing up the issue said that I heard that the most common grade given in Harvard was an A-. That's ridiculous. And the dean of education had to step in and correct him. The dean of education was like, no, the median grade is an A-, but the most commonly given grade is an A. So, thank you for...
If I missed one of their points, can I ask them what
Nope.
the point was? Because I was a little...
If you want to use your question for that.
Stand up.
No, you can't do it now. All right, so whenever you're ready, we have the leader of opposition for 4 minutes.
Okay, so I want to thank my partner for being my volunteer today since my partner couldn't be here. I would also like to thank our opponents for being here to debate this with us today. I would like to thank the audience for taking time out of their day to come, and I would also like to thank the speaker for being so gracious. To get started, the resolution states that grade inflation is harmful to students. However, today I will be arguing the opposite of this, that grade inflation is in fact not harmful to students. To go ahead and define some of the key terms, our key terms, we defined grade inflation, which our definition was a little bit different than the opposition's. We stated that that grade inflation is the assigning of grades higher than previously assigned for given levels of achievement. And so to get started with some of our main points, number one, grade inflation helps students on the brink of failure from not failing a class. So this means that by allowing students to have their grades boosted up a little bit, they're getting that extra little nudge they need to help them to get through the course and to pass if their grade is, say, they're on the verge of maybe failing, that little grade boost could help them to get through and to pass. Secondly, our second point states that students are more likely to stay enrolled in school if they have a reason, such as they know that their grades are staying where they would like them. And this gives them more of an incentive to want to be there and provides more of a confidence boost to students in turn. Thirdly, it allows the professor in the school to look better, and by doing this, the teacher is getting better results on their evaluations from the students doing better in classes. Therefore, the teacher is more likely to be a better professor and be more enthusiastic about teaching because they also themselves have an incentive to do so. And lower grades may harm teacher evaluations, so yes.
How does the teacher giving out easier A's help them to become a better professor?
Because it doesn't necessarily make them a better professor, but if students are reacting better to the professor and he or she is getting a better likability factor, that may affect the way that they perform as a professor as well as the way students perform as students. So.
Okay, thank you.
And to move on, our fourth point says that grade inflation also looks better for students' resumes and GPA after college. It is more appealing to an employer possibly if you have a higher GPA in comparison to someone else. And students work hard for their grades, so why not give them a little boost to assure that all the work they've done is actually paying off in the end. So to kind of go through some of the opposition's points, they stated that giving everyone an A lessens the A that someone else got, maybe lessens the work that someone else put in. But I would say to this that a grade that someone else receives doesn't have anything to do with your work or the work that you've put in. The grade that another student receives has nothing to do with the personal grade that you are receiving, so I think that argument is invalid. Secondly, professor giving, I'm not sure what that point was. Everyone getting an A, it won't be special anymore. However, just like I said, if your grade is something that you're earning, I don't see why it's relevant as to what other people think about that. So just to reiterate some of my own points, grade inflation is helpful to students on the brink of failure because it helps them to not fail and gives them an extra boost. Students are more likely to stay enrolled in school if they are earning better grades. It makes the professor look better, in turn allowing him, maybe he or she, more reason to want to perform better, and so the same for the student. And it looks better for the student's resume and GPA after college. So those are the points that I have. Thank you.
All right, looks like we're ready. So we now have the member of government, Kayla, for 4 minutes.
All right, I'd like to thank my partner Alex for showing up somewhat on time. I'd like to thank the opponents and the audience and Dr. Dar, the Speaker of the House. So, for what my opponents said, one of their first points, they said that it helps students not fail a class, and when they're on like the verge of failing. To me, this reminds me of like the win-win scenario, and it's basically saying, oh, well, you try hard, you both get a good grade, and it's just like you're really close so that you can go on and you can get a better grade also. And I just, for one, think that that's really not fair. I work really hard in school, and I want to get a good grade, and I think that if I work really hard, I should get a better grade than someone who doesn't, even if they are on the verge of failing, or even if they are like somewhat close of getting an A. I still think that if they did the work of a B+, that they should get a B+, not an A-. And they also said that more students will stay in school with good grades, and honestly, I'd rather learn the hard way than learn the easy way, than graduating college and not having any skills of knowing how to work hard and having more intelligence and everything like that. I'm going to college because I want to learn life skills, I want to learn new things about my major and everything. I don't want to just get by and just have a professor look at me and say, she tries hard and everything, she deserves this. I want to actually learn and try and gain a better self in school. Also, they said that a GPA looks good with stuff after college, and I agree with that, and that's why I think that trying hard in school and how grade inflation is harmful, because it favors those that don't have the good work skills versus us that do. And the other thing that I found that they really have a problem with is how she said a grade does have an effect on with someone trying hard than someone that does not try hard. I am trying to get into grad school, so I see school as a competition. That might not be a good thing, but I try hard in school and I study my butt off every week to get a good grade. I'm not trying to brag on myself, but I've gotten 4.0s all throughout my schooling because I want to get to grad school. I want to be that one that gets picked over the job versus someone that just got their way through it and just scooted their way through it but got a good grade. I want to show people that I can handle schooling and that I have better skills than somebody else that doesn't have them. And I think that it's better that you look at school as a competition rather than something to just scoot your way through. So to go over our main points, one of the first ones was it lessens grades of those who try to work hard in school, and also that professors use grade inflation for their students to have better grades, and so they can't go against that. The third one is if everyone makes higher grades, then the third one is if everyone makes higher grades, then what's the competition in that? And the fourth one is it's made A an average grade.
All right, ready for the member of opposition who graciously stepped up late to participate in extra debate.
I just want to thank everyone, you guys, everyone. I guess it's just a basic, like, thanks. Okay, to start off, refuting some of their points. One, they said it lessens someone else's A. Okay, but with what I'm doing, if I'm the one putting in all the hard work, if I'm doing it, then I'm going to get that A regardless. Like, that means I'm going to get it. It's a guaranteed for me. Who cares if Sally is half-assing it and she's not doing well and she's still getting an A? Then when it's time for her to actually go into her major and for her to get a real job, she's not going to do very well, and you're going to excel over her anyway. So who cares if everyone's getting an A? If you earned it and you got that A, then good for you. Don't worry about somebody else's. In their third point, they said if everyone gets an A, then it won't be special, but jobs, when they're not looking just for your grade. They're looking for everything else. They're looking for how many things you were involved in. They're not going to look through and, in facts, they only got a B. and they're not gonna like look through it and just decipher just on your grades. There's gonna be a lot more things that go involved with that. And if you're doing internships and you're going out there and you're working that, being that A+ student, it's gonna pay off for you eventually. Just to go over, yes?
Okay, so you just said that how a person that you, for instance, works hard and somebody else does not work hard and you both get A's and you're going to be rewarded for that, but what if you both are applying for the same job and they end up getting the job? How do the employers know that you're the one that works hard for it and they didn't?
They don't, but based off your qualifications, your other grades are probably gonna also be better, because I doubt every teacher with every subject is going to do grade inflation. I'm sure your other classes that you're gonna get a B in, and they're gonna get a D-. They're gonna look over everything, not just that one class or just that one A that you got over somebody else. To go over our main points, it helps students that are failing. I agree with that, because if sometimes I don't get a bad grade because I didn't try hard enough, it's just that I truly didn't understand it. So if I'm not understanding something 100% correct, then maybe going over with the teacher saying, hey, I need some help, they'll help me and they'll boost my grade up just to kind of help me a little bit so I don't fail. I'm putting all that money in and I'm trying, but I'm just not competent enough, but they're gonna help me be competent enough and they're gonna give me that grade. 2, they're more likely to stay enrolled in school. I know for me, if I'm doing bad in something, I'm not gonna wanna stay there. I dread going to classes that I have a C in, because I'm like, dang, I have a C, like this is rough, this is hard. I'm most likely not, it's average, normal people are gonna say, this is too hard, I have a C, like I'm not gonna try as hard. But if they're getting a better grade, they're gonna be more into it, they're gonna be more willing to do participation and stuff because they're getting the better grade. Yes.
Why would they be motivated by having a low grade? I'm motivated when I have a low grade to do better and want to better myself.
And I'm opposite. When I have a low grade, I shut
So
down,
when
I
it
get
gets hard, you
scared.
just give up?
Sometimes. 3, it makes the professors in school look better. If your teacher is giving you a little easier grade, and because we all have those teachers that are really, really strict, and we normally really don't like it because they're just really strict, they have a hard policy, we're like, oh my gosh, like this paper is gonna get, I'm gonna get an F because they're so hard on grading, versus the other teachers that are a little more lenient, they're a little more laissez-faire, they're just like, okay, well like, we'll give you, it may have been a B-, but we'll give you the B+, we'll give you the A- because you're in this class, you're still coming, you know. It's just nice to have that the teacher-student relationship that people want. They want to be able to go to their teachers, and I know if I'm constantly being nagged on by a teacher, I'm going to be scared to go to them, and I'm going to be scared to ask for help because they're not, to me, it doesn't seem like they are caring enough to give me the time of day. And 4, it looks good on your resume and GPA for when you go to apply for your other jobs. And I'm at 4 minutes, so that was
All right, closing statements, leader of opposition, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, so basically just to summarize the definitions, we had defined grade inflation as the assigning of grades higher than previously assigned for given levels of achievement, while I believe they defined it as a rise in the average grade assigned to students. So there was a little difference between those 2 definitions, but nothing very drastic. To summarize our points, basically, we stated that grade inflation is not harmful because it helps students on the brink of failure from not failing. Additionally, students are more likely to stay enrolled in a course, given the incentive to want to be there and giving them the confidence boost to be in the class. Makes the professor and the school look better in turn, therefore producing better results. And it looks better for student resume and GPA after college. And to kind of refute some of their points, they made the case that everyone gets an A if this were to be implemented, but basically personality is also a factor in after college and getting a job. So the fact that everyone receives an A doesn't always count. There are other factors into furthering yourself beyond college that should be taken into consideration. And making A an average grade, well, students should try to stand out in their own way on top of, if everyone in your class made the same grade, what is it that stands out about you? So those 2 things really stood out to me as kind of flawed arguments. So basically, we have won because we've proven our points. that grade inflation is in fact helpful rather than harmful in allowing students to be the best that they can and to finish school strong and to make something of themselves afterwards. So thank you very much.
Finally, the Prime Minister with 2 minutes closing statement.
Thank you. All right, I would like to explain why we win this debate. But first, before I do that, I would like to say that in an interview, you win, okay, so like in an interview, it's decided whether or not you're hired in the first 15 seconds. I'm sure you guys have heard that alarming statistic before. And if you can talk good, you can talk well, talk good, you can't talk good. If you can talk well, you can have a lot of bark, but you have no bite, you have no knowledge to back it up, then you're going to get the job. And the guy who actually has the knowledge, who would have gotten the A, is not going to get the job. So, some of my opposition's point was that having both people getting an A does not lessen your A, then doesn't that just incentivize people to do the bare minimum? And I would like to say that we have won this debate because we have proven that grade inflation is harmful to students because it lessens the grade of the people who try really hard, like Kayla, because professors can't really fight against it because they'll just look bad to their superiors. And I would like to end again with the quote from Syndrome from The Incredibles. If everyone is super, then no one will be. If everyone is super, then no one is.